Yes, sir, absolutely. Good evening. I'd like to bring this meeting to order of the Wilmington City Council. I'd like to welcome all those who are with us this evening and all those who are watching us at home. Thank you for taking an interest in your government. At this time, I'm going to introduce Reverend Thomas Nixon, pastor of St. Stephen's AME Church, for the invocation and ask if everyone will remain standing afterwards for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pastor, welcome.
Let us pray. To him who loves us best, Jesus the Christ, we come and ask your blessings to descend upon this chamber. We pray that your guidance will lead, direct this council, that they will represent the citizens of Wilmington, North Carolina. We thank you, Lord, for grace. We thank you for mercy. And we pray as we continue throughout this meeting this night, that you will lead, guide, direct our thoughts and our paths, that all that we do and say will be done to your honor and glory. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First order of business is our consent agenda. Items C1 through C5, are there any items that any council member would like to hear separately? If not, what are the wishes of this council? We have a motion to approve by Councilmember Barnett, second by Councilmember Spears. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That item passes unanimously. That brings us to our next segment of the meeting, which is our public information segment. We have 4 speakers that have signed up to speak with us this evening. Each speaker will be allotted 5 minutes. The city clerk will be keeping time of those things. So the first person tonight is Mr. Paul Burdett, Jr., who will be speaking to us about North Carolina unauthorized substance tax. Mr. Burdett here? Mr. Burdett? Okay. Second speaker is Mr. Ed Wagonseller, who will be speaking to us about Hooker Road multi-use path. Is Mr. Wagonseller in? Mr. Wagonseller? Okay. Fourth speaker, third speaker is Mr. Duquesne Peters, who will be speaking to us about objections to the use of drug tax dollars for police museum. Mr. Peters.
Good evening, councilmen and councilwomen. My name is Daquan Peters, and I'm the New Hanover County Second Chance Alliance Coordinator. And today I am here asking you all to vote no against the use of drug tax funds for the use of a museum at the Wilmington Police Department. First, before I go any further, I want to let the councilman and everyone know that this is not an attack on the Wilmington Police Department. This is not an attack against the police. We're not here asking you to defund the police. The only thing that we're asking, also, we're not objection to the museum itself. We're objecting to the use of the drug tax funds to be able to utilize for that purpose. What we're asking y'all to do today is to vote no and reinvest that money back into the community that it comes out of. 90% of the individuals that drug tax affects is from the black community, low-income communities. Prior to this meeting here, we sent each of you a letter. I don't know if each one of y'all received it, but we do have hard copies which on that letter.
Can you give the hard copies to the city?
No, I gave her a hard copy of something else. This is the actual letter that we sent via email to each one of you at the last meeting. Okay. And so what we're saying in that letter is we are writing to urge you to vote no on the proposed ordinance to allocate $40,000 from the funds collected from the NC drug tax to pay for the creation of a museum display in Wilmington Police Department artifacts. Instead of using the $40,000 to fund a museum, the use of the funds should be determined by community members, and it would be better spent investing in local community needs. The North Carolina drug tax, formerly known as the unauthorized substance tax, extracts hundreds of thousands of dollars from low-income communities and communities of color each year. This is a statutory relic from the war on drugs that purports to raise money by selling stamps that are supposed to be permanently affixed to the controlled substance. However, in practice, little to no money is generated from the stamp sales because no one besides stamp collectors purchase these stamps. Most of the money collected through the drug tax is from people who are found in possession of one of the specified substance, which without a stamp, and it is on it and is assessed back taxes. I'm gonna stop right there because I know I'm only allowed 5 minutes. What we're saying is this money is taken from individuals who have paid their debt to society. We understand this used to be fought at the General Assembly. We're at the General Assembly at least 3 times a month with senators and representatives speaking about this. But however, it has reached a local level to us now today that we advocates and other nonprofits that signed on to this from the ACLU, NAACP, and a host of other nonprofit organizations is asking y'all today to reinvest, if possible, reinvest this $40,000 back into the community. Today I have an individual with me. He's the coach, the head coach and director of the Wilmington Eagles football team, which is a Pop Warner football sport. Last year, these individuals, these young brothers and sisters had to raise over $30-something thousand to be able to go to the Pop Warner World Championship, Super Bowl as they call it. No one thought about these individuals. You see them every day. You see these young brothers and sisters on the corner selling donuts, cakes, dinners, everything just to keep them out of a street environment and keep them on the right path. This $40,000 can actually be allotted to them. They have a Super Bowl this year as well. Some of this money that is extracted from these individuals come from individuals who have not been found guilty or the charges were dismissed. So what that means is even if a person gets caught with drugs or in the proximity of drugs and they get charged with it, that charge is dismissed, they go to court, they get found not guilty. What happens to that individual? They end up with a heavy tens of thousands of dollars in taxes that they don't even know about. They go to work, they come at the end of the year, they go to be able to draw taxes, they look for their tax money. is garnished because of this drug tax. And again, I understand that it's at a state level, but now we're talking to our local elected officials who are supposed to put the people first. Anytime you put people before policy, then you're doing something for the people. All we're asking you to do is try to find a different way to use this money to allocate back into the community. And I understand what the chief's saying. I understand totally. He want to bridge a gap. He want to be able to use this to bridge a gap, but there's so many other ways that this money could be allocated towards needs in the community. You yourself, Mayor, when it came to housing, you asked where could $25 million be pulled from? Well, we have two resources. North Carolina, Sheriff Department and the Police Department gets at least $100,000 a year in this money. A lot of this money comes from people who hasn't even been convicted of no drugs. All we asking you today is please to take the people into consideration and take the letters that we present to you, take anything that can help y'all into making y'all decision, and say no and reinvest that money back into the community that it comes out of. Thank you for allowing me to share.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker is Mr. Teague Sidbury, who will be also talking to us about the use of drug tax funds.
Good evening, Councilman, Councilwoman. My name is Teague Sidbury. I am the president of the Wilmington Eagles youth football team. I'm also a coach. I'm here to say let's vote no for the museum and let's say yes to the kids and the youth of our community. I've been doing this for maybe 22 years, coaching. We have never had an opportunity to present anything that was like this. As I said, we got plenty, a lot of kids. I'm sorry, excuse me. I was a little bit nervous. Sorry. We got over 100 kids in our program. That's female and male inner city youth kids that are. We have to get out on the corners to raise money in order for equipment, insurance, to pay the insurance for them. It's a lot of things. Sometimes they don't have money, so we have to buy the equipment. We have to buy the shoes, the socks, mouthpieces, and all that stuff. So if we can propose a way that the kids can get some of these funds and that we can use them for them also, it would be a great help to the Wilmington Eagles football, cheer, and dance teams also. That's about all I can say. But I have sent you a proposal that I wish everybody could take a chance to look at. We also are in the schools. The teachers call us to come in, and so we're mentoring, and also we're kind of like their father figures to a lot of these kids at school. So I just wish that we can just get a chance to look at it. If not, I know it's a short thing, but I just want to know that we gave presented it to you. And I'm sorry for all this right here. It's my first time being able to speak.
Mr. Sidbury, real quick, how many kids are in your program?
120.
120 kids?
Yes, sir.
And you've been running the program for how many years?
It's been going for our program been going for 22 years. But
22?
Yes, sir.
And how long have you been coaching?
22.
Okay, wow.
22 years.
Good work.
Yes.
And you said that you have boys and girls?
Boys and girls, yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to know more about your program.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And there are ways
Yes.
that you guys can ask for money, like every 2 years, we give money to organizations that impact kids. And so I'd love to maybe sit down and talk with you and help you to figure out how we can maybe do that.
Yes, sir.
So that you don't have to just come and get this amount of money, but really benefit your program and your kids. So we'll talk.
Yes, sir, thank
All
you.
right, I have one more question.
Yes, sir.
How many teams make up those 120?
We have 4 teams.
Do y'all ever have businesses that'll sponsor teams? And
Well, not businesses. We might have an individual who come through, and they're sponsored one team.
Okay.
It's a lot. We jerseys, we have to buy uniforms, and that's $1,700 for one team.
1,700 a team for uniforms?
For uniforms, and then we got to buy helmets, which is like $3,000 just for 25 helmets for one team. So
So it'd be like 4,700 for a team to like
Yes.
sponsor a team?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
I can help you with that.
Me too.
Yes, sir.
Team, you got 4 teams,
Yes, sir.
$5,000 a team,
Yes, sir.
okay? I'll call you.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Sidbury.
And the good news is, and I hope you hear, and I hope the people in the city hear, is that people want to help kids. We really do. We want to help kids, but we want to give to programs that are successful. Programs, like you say, that go back into the schools and really, do great things with the kids. So, all of us here want to help you. So we'll do that, and I just want everybody to know that that's what we're about. Okay.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you.
Mr. Sidbury,
Yes, sir.
I want you slighted yourself a little bit. I want you to let the council members know how many times in the past few years you've taken your team, the Eagles, to the Pop Warner Super Bowl.
We took our teams 4 years. In the last 2 years, back to back, last year we took 2 teams. We normally just take one team, but we took 2 teams, a 14-year-old team and a 12-year-old team, took them down to Disney for the Pop Warner Super Bowl, and we placed 3rd place in that coming out of the area. Being that we're from in the city, that's a big thing for the kids, and we have a lot of kids who, when we go to the schools, when they are misbehaving, and the teachers call us and we go to the schools, so the kids they are straightened up because they want to be a part of that, and that's.
And,
Yes.
and didn't your cheer team win last year?
Yes, our cheer also. Our cheer team, we took 4 cheer teams down there last year also. So we have now become a nationally recognized program coming out of Wilmington, North Carolina.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Sidbury, I've kept up with that. I mean, it does get out there, the word, how successful your program is. But if you don't ask, you don't get. And I think the more people that know of your success and the need that you have, and let's get it out there, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised with the outcome.
Yes, sir. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you,
you,
Mr. Sidbury.
Councilman Lane.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
That brings us to our next item of business, which is our public hearings. Our first item is PH1, which is an ordinance amending the official zoning map of the city of Wilmington to rezone property located at 3939 Carolina Beach Road from R15 Moderate Density Single Dwelling District to MD17 High Density Multi-Dwelling Residential District. This time I'd like to recognize our city manager, Mr. Tony Caudle. Mr. Caudle.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, and members of council. Senior Planner Nicole Smith will present the overview of this project as a result of the regulatory authority that the city has over this request. Following that, our Economic Development Director, Aubrey Parsley, will do the owner's plea for the rezoning.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. The proposal includes one parcel of approximately .918 of an acre and is located south of Independence Boulevard and north of George Anderson Drive. The site served as the Wilmington Fire Department, Station 6, from 1987 through June of 2019. This map provides context and highlights the site location. To the right of the slide are images of the subject site's existing conditions. This slide illustrates existing development within the vicinity. North of the site is a utility station. South, east, and west of the site are multiple family dwellings. The request is to rezone the subject site from R15 to MD17. This is a general rezoning, therefore there is not a site plan nor conditions affiliated with this request. The site is located near commercial services and uses, including grocers and medical services, and within an existing high-capacity transit route along Carolina Beach Road. The proposed MD17 zoning will increase housing options and is consistent with the existing MD17 developments located to the southwest and east. With 20% required open space and application of site and building design standards, the proposed rezoning would provide more green space, pedestrian paths, and architectural assurances than redevelopment under the current R15 district. This chart provides analysis of the uses permitted by right and under prescribed conditions for both the current R15 and proposed MD17 zoning districts. Highlights indicate a difference in potential land uses. The Create Wilmington Comprehensive Plan calls for location-efficient housing to be promoted and encouraged to help supply Wilmington with diverse housing options that are accessible to individuals and families of all incomes, needs, and preferences. As previously mentioned, this site is located within an area that is near commercial services and uses, including grocers and medical services, and within an existing high-capacity transit route along Carolina Beach Road. The proposed high-density, multiple-dwelling residential zoning is consistent with the existing MD17 developments located to the southwest and east. Based on the information contained in the case summary and the Create Wilmington Comprehensive Plan, staff believes the request is reasonable and in the public interest and recommends approval. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on August 3rd. At their meeting, one person spoke in support of the request and 4 residents spoke in opposition to the request. Cited concerns include absence of pedestrian infrastructure along Carolina Beach Road, inability of the application to address community concerns, and general compatibility. That concludes staff's presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you have, and Aubrey Parsley is also available as the applicant.
Okay. Any questions to staff? Mr. Robinson?
We are the applicant.
Yes, sir.
Is there, do we know what if there's we're on the bus routes, if there could be possibly a bus stop at this location? Is that, I know that's not something you've probably delved into, but that would certainly be beneficial to this for what's possibly planned.
Sure.
That's
So
in-
I'm sorry to
No, go ahead.
interrupt you. The site is currently serviced by 2 locations as shown on your screen via Route 201. There is a stop at George Anderson Drive and Carolina Beach Road. There's also a north and southbound route available at the intersection of Independence and Carolina Beach Road. To answer your question, during the public input process prior to Planning Commission, there was a comment received by Wave Transit indicating interest to potentially install a site along this frontage to help with transportation needs.
Great, thank you very much.
Mr. Anderson?
Oops. I'd gotten some emails, it's been a while, it's really sort of around the time of the Planning Commission, but I guess we're so used to seeing special where we get to see a pretty picture of what everything looks like, and you don't get that's not the case here because it's a straight rezoning. So I wonder if you might be able to just outline a little bit more about MD17 for those neighbors. I guess you've met with them and have, as I understand. Is that correct?
That's correct. In addition to the required mailings that notify all property owners within 300 feet of the property, Aubrey and members of the Good Shepherd team attended an initial meeting with the board. Planning staff attended a second meeting with the board at the middle of August. So we have tried to address some of the concerns, even though there is not a site plan attached with the application. One of the concerns mentioned were kind of what to expect from a dimensional standards. So that's what's on your screen. This chart indicates the differences between R15, which is the existing zoning, and the proposed MD17 zoning. Some things to hit on are the minimum open space required under the MD17 is 20% of the lot, as opposed to redevelopment under the current R15, which is only 10%. Additionally, you can see the difference in the setbacks, 10 feet as opposed to 20 feet along the frontage, 5 feet as opposed to 10 feet is the side interior setback, and 15 feet as opposed to 25 feet is the rear setback. And I'll note that this is a minimum setback, so if the development decides to increase those setbacks, that's certainly an opportunity. Other differences would include the maximum height of 96 feet under MD 17 as opposed to 35 in the R15, and a maximum building footprint of 70% of the total lot. Something else unique to the MD 17 is that there are design standards that are not enforced under redevelopment under the R15. Building design standards which touch on exterior facade building materials that would be required, architectural treatments to delineate a first floor, second floor, and a third floor.
Okay, could you pop back to the little blue? Yeah, there we go. So I guess, and you know, and us being the applicant's also a little different, the city that is versus a private individual. But we don't, and nowhere in our code, or even if it's not in our code, I think from the city standpoint, it'd be nice to show our citizens kind of a building envelope, kind of like instead of having a chart where it has, you know, the buffer around it, you know, so they can understand what that buffer looks like. And there's no requirement or anything to do fencing or anything of that nature, correct? It's just.
I will say not under our current code. Something that we are looking into as staff in the future is a text amendment that would kind of bridge the gap. So our understanding is that the site plan attachment is a very significant expense on these nonprofit organizations, and often when they come for a rezoning, they're not prepared with a design plan because they're still in a fundraising state. So something that staff is looking at is a text amendment that would allow a narrative in a similar situation like this moving forward, so you could address height and open space, things of that nature.
Well, I guess what I'm getting at is when the city's the applicant, if I'm a citizen, I'm holding us to a higher standard than anyone else applying. So I would just, I don't know what we could do to change it a little bit, but it just seemed to be a lot of the questions they had, they couldn't get answered. I mean, because you have so much in the review side of it that they're never going to see when you say, hey, you got to have a planting. I don't know if you still do that, where you got to show where your plantings are, and you're going to have a certain opacity of the bushes in a certain amount of time, and all that stuff are things that the general citizen just does not know does not know is going to happen. So I just think we can do a better job of that. At least that from the feedback I got, that was a complaint. But I appreciate this chart. I wish it was somehow in a graphic, more like a site plan, not a site plan, but just a how much the building envelope is. You got to leave 20%. Something that visuals are just so easily understood. So 17 is the maximum on this piece of property, right?
Typically, yes.
If they can fit it in.
Since they are designating a minimum of 10% of the residential units to a workforce housing, then they are eligible for a density bonus. Based on the acreage, what that looks like is a maximum of 33 units.
And so the green space requirement goes away?
They're still required to comply with the 20%
So
open space.
So if they can fit that in the puzzle, so to speak,
Yes,
they could get up to that many units.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
I was just talking to the mayor, something popped up, in uses like what we have planned here, do you only factor in your parking requirements for the staff? Is parking exempt when it's something of this use or this type of use?
It's not exempt, but the use itself qualifies for a reduced parking requirement, which is equivalent to half of a space per unit.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Didn't look down at my notes. Have the staff talked at all with any of the deputies or whoever about plans or potential for sidewalk up towards the Food Line Shopping Center?
So right now, redevelopment of the site will require installation of sidewalk along the property frontage. It is identified as a gap in our planning area. So what's on your screen here is a Walk Wilmington map, which identifies the public need. So that is the first step in securing any project funding. But at this time, there is not an identified funding source. What that could look like is a continuation of incremental redevelopment or new development along the parcels fronting Carolina Beach Road to complete the system. It could also come in the form of a capital improvement project or a grant financing situation. Again, none of that has been identified right now, but the first step in securing any type of funding or project support is identifying it in the city's transportation plans, which has been done.
Okay. It just would appear to me that you're going to put this type of development there that, and we're kind of holding hands on this, which I'm perfectly fine with, but that needs to be, get a few more points in whatever scoring systems out there, in my opinion. So thank you.
Yes, sir.
Anybody else?
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. Tonight, as the city manager already mentioned, I'll be representing the city as the applicant. It's already been said, but it does bear repeating. This is a general rezoning item. Because it is a general rezoning item, this proceeding does not contemplate an intended use or an intended user of the property. Council members are being asked to consider, after having heard from the public through this public hearing item, which will be done tonight, the highest and most intensive zoning that's consistent with the city's comp plan. But additional information surrounding this item is out there, and it's out there because city staff intentionally put it out there via an announcement and press release so as to be as transparent as possible with the public of what the process looks like, what we are doing, and how we planned on doing it. And as was stated in the announcement, city staff intended to, one, apply for the general rezoning, which is one item on tonight's agenda, and then separately submit a resolution to council which would donate the property to Good Shepherd for permanent supportive housing, which is, for the benefit of the public, a specific subset of affordable housing which is designed for the chronically homeless with disabilities, which includes seniors and veterans. So again, there's two separate decisions to be made. Does the property merit rezoning to MD17? Is that the highest and most intensive use that's consistent with the comp plan? Then separately, later tonight under R1, the question of should the property be donated to Good Shepherd for the intended use of supportive housing. So the idea was, now that with all the information out there about the project, the public with the full story could effectively participate in all the public processes that are involved with items such as these. This also, having the announcement and the press release, also enabled staff to engage with interested members of the community directly and be able to hear concerns, address issues, and have the time to provide actionable recommendations to council as will be part of the presentation here later tonight. I have nothing else to add to the comments already made by Nicole. She was very thorough in her review as to the merits of the MD17 zoning being proposed, but I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any left.
Are there any questions for Aubrey? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, sir. I will now open the public hearing and ask if anyone in the public wishes to speak in favor or in opposition. And the public hearing will be set for 30 minutes, and each speaker will be allotted 3 minutes to speak. So, public hearing is now open. If whoever wants to speak can come forward, state their name for the record, where they live, and public hearing's open. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, everybody. My name is Rosemary Norris. I live on Holbrook Avenue in Wilmington. I've been here for 20 years. I'm interested in I know that it can't be sold. I'd like to buy it, but I found out that you can't buy city property, it has to be donated. But I'm just learning about this process, and I would like to possibly offer an idea about, I have some property, an empty lot on Holbrook Avenue, and I think that might be a lot nicer for them to build whatever they want to build. There's the Good Shepherd, which is a great organization, but I really would like to have that firehouse to preserve the integrity of the fact that it was a Wilmington firehouse at one time. And also, I've been doing affordable housing on my own for about 25 years, and I rent to sometimes homeless people, sometimes veterans, sometimes single moms, sometimes low-income people, disabled people. I worked as a sign language interpreter with deaf people for 20-some years, and I think I would love to turn that into affordable housing, and the city wouldn't have to do anything. I would do the interior work if there needs to be some work done, and all it really needs is some minor repairs and a new roof. And I would like you to consider trading property. My place is, my lot, or I have 2 lots, is right down the street from 3939 Carolina Beach Road. So hopefully I'll learn more about the process and how to present a proposal to you, I guess is what I would need to do. And thanks for listening to me.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ia Ruth, and I am the 2022 president for Cape Fear Realtors. Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. I am here to express our support of the proposal to rezone the site at 3939 Carolina Beach Road from the existing R15 moderate density single dwelling to MD17 high density multiple dwelling district. We fully embrace the intended development by Good Shepherd Ministries of Wilmington, which is to provide permanent supportive housing for chronically homeless adults with disabilities, including seniors and veterans. At Cape Fear Realtors, we believe that every citizen should have access to safe, affordable housing, whether it is in an urban, suburban, or rural setting, regardless of income. And Cape Fear Realtors considers it the responsibility of each community to address and provide housing solutions for its residents. The current estimated need for permanent supportive housing units in our area is approximately 100. This project would be a major step toward meeting that need. Cape Fear Realtors appreciates and supports the city's effort to use publicly owned land to meet a critical need, making homes a reality for our chronically homeless neighbors. We ask you to vote in favor of the rezoning proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sierra Washington, and I work within the Northside community and work with many of the residents that Good Shepherd would be helping with this project. On July 19th, Mr. Jared Patterson, City Communications Officer, Mr. John Joy, City Attorney, Assistant Chief David Euler, Wilmington Police Department, and Mr. Tom Moten, Deputy City Manager, gave a presentation on public safety and panhandling. Within this presentation, many of the officials and staff above spoke about panhandling and the inability to arrest someone as a matter of freedom of speech. The conversation then turned to ways in which to criminalize other behaviors associated with panhandling that were targeted at our unsheltered community members. Sitting in the room that day, I felt frustrated. I was frustrated because it seemed as though our officials and staff of local government were not interested in addressing the root causes of panhandling and homelessness. It seemed as though the solution was criminalization and an indescript suggestion of supporting nonprofits instead. Today, my frustration from that meeting has turned into hope for the possibility of addressing the issue at its root, providing supportive and immediate housing to our neighbors who are chronically homeless. I'm in support of the efforts to rezone the old firehouse located on Carolina Beach Road as a means to holistically support our unsheltered community. Permanent supportive housing is necessary and needed. The rezoning to allocate the space for a denser population is a development which will support those who are most vulnerable in our city. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
My name is Brianna Dietrich, and I'm here on behalf of Wave Transit. I'm our mobility manager. You've already heard a bit of the technical assistance that we are able to provide. We've done a preliminary search of the grounds. We have 2 available stops nearby. However, we're in support of adding a stop that is accessible with passenger amenities at this location. In addition to that, my job as the mobility manager is to provide travel training, Transit 101 educational experiences, and other forms of technical assistance and support to the people who would come to live in this spot. We have a great working relationship with the wonderful folks at Good Shepherd, and we would look forward to continuing that relationship should this project happen. Thank you.
Hello, I am Stephanie Payne. I am Wilmington native and outreach and admissions counselor for Project Transition. We are partnered with Trillium, and our mission is to enable individuals with mental health, serious mental health illness, co-occurring substance use, and individuals with intellectual, developmental disabilities to live a life worth living that they define. Currently, 80% of our members were facing homelessness prior to their admission day. So what we are at Project Transition, just to give you a background of what my perspective is. Our program is 12 to 18 months. So we're here for the most vulnerable members of the community. In order to support them and meet them where they're at, we have to look at things in a very member-centered way. We need more long-term solutions. People don't become homeless overnight, and they don't get everything back on foot overnight either. So when they come on board with us, within the first week of their time with us, they're announcing what their game plan is. 10 out of 10 members that we work with share the goal of learning the skills that it takes to live independently. I've had the pleasure of working very closely with several of the social workers at Good Shepherd and Physicians Alliance all over Coastal Horizon. I've seen what's possible when a team of advocates, social workers, discharge coordinators come together and try to get a person where they need to get. And this long-term solution, this permanent housing option, enables us to support these members and help them meet their goal. Their goal is to live independently. They have every right to do so. I'm thinking about the young lady that I admitted last month who was homeless for 15 years. And as a part of my admissions process, I have a checklist that I go down. I don't think twice of it as an admissions counselor, but part of the day's chores entail giving her a key. And to hand her a key that she hasn't had for 15 years, and watch the joy sweep over her face and her son's face, is something that I struggle to find words to really put into what that is. But As a Wilmington native, I've watched the homeless population grow. I've seen it. It's in my heart to advocate for these individuals. Mental health plays a big part in that. I refer to it often as the wash, rinse, repeat cycle. Hospitalization, discharge to homelessness, incarceration, discharge to homelessness, hospitalization. And we're getting to an excellent place where we have these resources, but we do have to think about, we have to put their needs first and think about the long-term solutions. And this would be an excellent avenue to help us continue forming these game plans and supporting them and getting back on their feet. So I ask that you please vote in favor of this rezoning. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor.
Good evening. My name is Ted Heilbronn. I'm an affordable housing developer active here in Wilmington and also across the rest of the state. The work that Good Shepherd is doing here is critical. We, as affordable developers, work with tenant populations that the city is prioritizing addressing. Excuse me, a little nervous. But there is no solution that the LIHTC development community has to address folks that are trying to leave homelessness behind. And so the combination of the experience that they've had in the community, the support tools that they have at their disposal, make them the only possible group to take advantage of this opportunity. The context from the perspective of someone who works in affordable housing development, we recognize that groups like Good Shepherd are absolutely necessary, and we are in support of the rezoning application. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council members. I'm Katrina Knight, Executive Director of Good Shepherd Center. I'd like to share our appreciation for your consideration of rezoning of this parcel. As staff have laid out in detail, the property's location and surroundings support the general rezoning request that allows for up to 33 units of multifamily housing. Not only would the proposed rezoning bring this small, approximately 1 acre parcel up to the same zoned density as the surrounding neighborhoods, this infill project would create the more diverse and integrated mixed income community that the Land Development Code encourages when considering placement of housing with affordable units. The proposal would not require the removal of existing trees and would have minimal impact on traffic on Carolina Beach Road and surrounding roadways. The comprehensive housing study commissioned by the city and New Hanover County, as well as the city's own Land Development Code and UDO, cite a need for greater production to overcome the serious shortage of residential housing in our community. While 33 is a modest number of units, the proposed rezoning would still move the needle in the right direction to improve the city's overall housing inventory. We're grateful for the city's ongoing commitment to affordable housing. We value you as a partner in this valuable effort, and we thank you for your consideration and support.
Anybody else? Okay. Madam Clerk, have we received any additional commentary in your office?
Yes, sir. We received 2 additional comments. One from Eric Clunch of 4150 Breezewood Drive. Mayor Saffo, Mayor Pro Tem Hain, Council Members Rivenbark, Anderson, Barnett, Spears, and Waddell, and the Planning Development Managers. I rise today to speak against the proposed rezoning of 3939 Carolina Beach Road from R15 to MD17. This parcel is a very modest-sized piece of land adjacent to residential neighborhoods consisting of 1-story homes and townhomes and adjacent to garden-style condominiums. Therefore, rezoning 3939 Carolina Beach Road from R15 moderate-density single-family dwelling residential district to M17 simply makes no sense. A better use of this parcel would be for a daycare facility to help bring down the astronomical costs of childcare to moms dads, aunts, uncles, grandparents, and foster parents who are raising young kids. Perhaps the city can put together a public-private partnership to enhance childcare options for city residents. A daycare in this location makes more sense than rezoning to high-density, multiple dwellings. Another possible use for this parcel is to convert it to an urban park with small-size hard court options or pickleball options. Another possible option is to simply retain the current zoning as R15 and then sell the property to a developer. Rezoning this parcel to MD17 is simply not the right thing to do for the parcel of land located at 3939 Carolina Beach Road. I urge you to vote no to this rezoning request. And from Lorraine Winter of 4140 Breezewood Drive, I have expressed my concern at 3 different meetings about the possible location of an affordable housing project being built at 3939 Carolina Beach Road. This is only a .92 acre tract which is being donated to Good Shepherd. I cannot believe the Planning Commission and the City Council think that building affordable housing on such a busy road with no sidewalks and public transportation is a sound idea. I asked John Evans at a recent meeting if a noise and traffic study had been started before the project moves forward. He told me that the city does not own Carolina Beach Road, the state owns it. Not a good answer. The road noise and the high volume of traffic on this stretch of Carolina Beach Road makes this location a dangerous place to put homeless, chronically ill, and or veterans. Homelessness isn't a quick fix, and that is what Good Shepherd is trying to do. I'm opposed to this rezoning strictly because this is not a good fit to put homeless individuals. It's dangerous to get onto Carolina Beach Road. I would think the city must have another property location they could donate to Good Shepherd. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Are there any other questions from council members? Okay. I'm going to close the public hearing. I see that we have a motion to approve by Councilmember Spears and Councilmember Barnett has seconded that motion. Councilmember Spears, will you please read a consistency statement for the record, please, sir?
I move to approve the proposed amendment to rezone property located at 3939 Carolina Beach Road from R15, moderate density, single dwelling district. Huh? Yeah. Moderate density, single dwelling district to MD17, high density, multiple dwelling residential district, and find it to be consistent with the relevant policies in the comprehensive plan based on the application materials and the information provided at the public hearing and in the staff report, and to find approval of the rezoning request is reasonable and in the public interest for the following reasons. The proposed rezoning is consistent with the surrounding area and would allow for an increase in residential density along a major corridor and transit line and near commercial services.
Okay. All right. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Item passes unanimously on first reading. Is there a motion to waive second reading? We have a motion by Councilmember Waddell, seconded by Councilmember Spears. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item passes unanimously on first as well as second reading. Okay, thank you. Next item of business is item PH2, which is an ordinance amending the official zoning map of the city to rezone property containing 2.76 acres of land located at 703 and a portion of 701 Military Cutoff Road from R15 moderate density single dwelling district to O&I CD Office and Institutional Conditional District to allow 2 office buildings with a total of 21,200 square feet. This time I'd like to recognize our city manager, Mr. Tony Cottle. Mr. Cottle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Associate Planner Jeff Walton will overview this item for us.
And I will also note for the record that whoever makes the motion must read a consistent statement for PH2 also. Thank you.
Thank you. The applicant proposes to rezone the site to office and institutional conditional district to allow 2 office buildings with a total of 21,200 square feet. The subject site was part of the 1995 annexation effective January of 1999. This is a regional photo of the subject site just south of Lucia Point along Military Cutoff with Mayfair across the street. These are pictures of the subject site as a vacant wooded lot. These are adjacent properties across Military Cutoff as well as Lucia Point to the north. 703 Military Cutoff is landlocked within the parent tract and was formerly used as a firing range for the New County Sheriff's Department. 703 Military is part of an inactive hazardous or waste disposal site due to the presence of lead from the former firing range. An agreement signed by the property owner sets land use restrictions for this parcel, which is attached in the report. On February 17, 2020, the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality approved a remediation action plan for site cleanup. That copy is also in your packet for tonight's presentation. I believe the applicant is also here to address those questions you may have. Again, the applicant proposes 2 office buildings for a total of 21,200 square feet. A single driveway connection is proposed off of Military Cutoff, as well as an existing 10-foot multi-use path exists along the frontage. The site is identified as within a high-density transition area of opportunity, employment academic center mixed use, a transit-oriented mixed-use center, and along a major corridor. The plan calls for employment opportunities within an office development in proximity to services and multimodal connectivity. The plan encourages quality design and site planning so that infill is compatible with existing and natural built environment. Wave Transit facilities on Military Cutoff Road present an opportunity to increase ridership on an existing high-capacity transit route. The proposed use provides an appropriate transition from the retail commercial areas to the south to the existing single-family uses to the north. The proposed rezoning is consistent with the Create Wellington Comprehensive Plan, and staff believes the request is reasonable and in the public interest, and we recommend conditional approval with the conditions outlined in the case summary. I'll be happy to address any questions you may have.
Any question for Bear? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. This time, I'd like to recognize the applicant.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Gardner Noble, Trask Land Company, and on behalf of the property owner, we appreciate the opportunity to present this project. This infill site was originally part of a large parcel annexation in the 1990s and was left R15 compared to the rest of the parent parcel, which was zoned O&I. The subject site was leased to the New Hanover County Sheriff's Department for a gun range on a handshake deal with no environmental indemnities. After years of gun range use, the property owner was left to deal with the environmental issues left behind. In a long and exhaustive process, the property owner and Trask Land Company have worked with NCDEQ to locate the lead on the site, monitor the lead on the site, and work with DEQ to obtain an approved remedial action plan. As part of this plan, we worked to minimize the effects of tree mitigation that would be required for potential cleanup. We believe that O&I is the highest and best use for the subject site, and if rezoned, will give us the opportunity to have a viable project that will allow us to clean up the lead. As the staff and planning board have both concurred, we believe that this project is consistent with the comprehensive plan. The site is located within a high-density transitions area of opportunity and employment, and the comprehensive plan calls for increased employment options in these areas with a proximity to a mix of uses. Our project site sits on Military Cutoff with numerous restaurants, medical, grocery, retail, and multifamily uses in the proximity of the site, allowing for an easy transition for our end users to the site surrounding areas. The site is also located close to public transportation through Wave Transit, as well as a great pedestrian access along Military Cutoff with access to the multi-use path that runs along Military Cutoff. Lastly, we have worked with the neighbors of Lucia Point to minimize the efforts of the surrounding properties by modifying our proposal to a less intensive zoning category from community business conditional to O&I conditional. This eliminated our original plans for retail and restaurant use due to feedback from the residents. Mayor and Council, I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Our project geologist, Jim Cornett, is here in attendance, as well as Rayford Trask. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Are there any questions of the applicant? Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, I will now open up the public hearing and ask if anybody in the public wishes to speak on this particular item, if they'll come forward and state their name for the record. Seeing none, Madam Clerk, have you received any additional commentary on this, on item PH2? Okay. Are there any further questions from council? Okay. I will close the public hearing and ask for the wishes of council. We have a motion made by Councilmember Rivenbark, second by Councilmember Waddell. Mr. Rivenbark, will you please read a consistent statement for the record, sir?
I move to approve the proposed amendment to rezone property located at 703 and a portion of 701 Military Cutoff from R15 Moderate Density Single Dwelling District to ONI CD Office and Institutional Conditional District to allow 2 office buildings for a total of 21,200 square feet in size, and find it to be consistent with the relevant policies in the comprehensive plan based on the application materials and the information provided at the public hearing and in the staff report, and to find approval of the rezoning request as reasonable and in the public interest for the following reasons. The proposed rezoning would allow for compatible infill development that is consistent with the development pattern of the surrounding area.
Okay. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? That item passes unanimously on first reading. Is there a motion to waive second reading? Motion made by Councilmember Anderson, second by Mayor Pro Tem Haynes. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item passes unanimously on first as well as second reading. That brings us to our next item of business, which is item PH3, which is an ordinance amending the official zoning map of the city to rezone property containing 0.84 of an acre of land located at 271 South Kerr Avenue and 4515 Greenway Avenue from R10 Medium Density Single Dwelling District to R5 CD Medium Density Mixed Residential District Conditional District to allow a 4-lot residential duplex subdivision with a maximum of 8 units. At this time, I'd like to recognize our city manager, Mr. Caudle. Mr. Caudle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Associate Planner Patrick O'Mahony would overview this item for us.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. This site's located on the northeast corner of Greenway Avenue and South Kerr Avenue and contains approximately 0.84 of an acre, and it's currently vacant. This map shows the general vicinity surrounding the request. And these are photos of the subject property. And these are photos of existing conditions surrounding the request. The site is currently zoned R10 residential. It's bordered by R10, MD10 CD, and RB zoning in the general vicinity. There are residential uses located in all directions. High-density residential is located across South Kerr Avenue to the west, with commercial uses directly to the north. This is the proposed site plan. The applicant is proposing to rezone this property from R10 residential to R5 conditional district. As mentioned, this is for 4 lots. Each will contain a duplex structure for a total of 8 units. These are proposed to be 2 stories. They'd be accessed by a shared access easement and driveway along Greenway Avenue. Under the current R10 zoning, there's a development potential of 3 residential units, with each being allowed a single accessory dwelling unit. These are elevations provided by the applicant. The site's located near a high-density transition area of opportunity and along a major corridor and regional connector on the Comprehensive Plan's Growth Strategies map. The Comprehensive Plan supports higher-density development where appropriate. This proposal provides additional housing options along a major corridor and puts residents near nearby services. Staff believes this proposed zoning amendment is consistent with the recommendations of the Crate Wilmington Comprehensive Plan, and that the request is reasonable in the public interest. Staff recommends conditional approval with the conditions outlined in the case summary. Planning Commission also unanimously recommended approval at their August meeting. I'm happy to answer any questions. That concludes my presentation. The applicant's here as well.
Do you have any questions of staff? Mr. Anderson?
Patrick, if you wanted to pass this on to the applicant, that's fine. I'm looking at a couple of, it looks like there's a couple renderings. One has some burgundy, maroon colored boxes, and then another one has the sketch. It looks like lot 4, was that duplex moved? It looks like it may have been moved to save some
Yes.
trees, I hope.
There were some changes after the applicant went to the pre-TRC, our technical review committee for review. Some tweaks were made to the plan between submittal and what is in your packet.
It's hard to tell from, I mean, those really do look like good trees back there. Was that the only place were they already positioned to save trees, or that was the only place y'all really had to tweak it?
There were some adjustments made in the name of saving trees to adjust the location of parking and to align the driveway in a correct location. But also, I'll defer to the applicant as well with some of their design choices.
Like up on lot 1, I guess it's hard to tell back away from when you're driving through there what's substantial and what's just overgrowth kind of stuff. Is that, let's see, this is, I guess I'll ask Cindy on this one. It's her rendering. So thanks, that one. Are there any, the significant trees are the ones that are plotted here? There's none up on lot 1?
Correct. None that would reach the status of having to be shown on a plan. That they wouldn't be protected.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yep, thank you.
This time I'd like to recognize the applicant.
Thank you. Good evening. My name's Cindy Wolf, and I'm working with the owners of the property. Appreciate the staff's. Did you take the mouse, or I don't need it anymore? Okay. All right. I'm sorry. Aerial photograph, as Pat pointed out, its location on South Carr Avenue. Thank you. There's been a lot that has gone on along South Carr Avenue over the years, obviously, with the DOT improvements of the intersection at Randall Parkway. Certainly, the properties across the street that used to be Longley properties into multi-dwelling communities. But the particular one right across the street is actually a good many duplexes. So I think that several of my rezoning petitions of the past several months have been R5, and it's a great opportunity, I feel like, for us to infill where there are already existing services available and yet still try to keep the fabric of the residential neighborhoods that are surrounding it. There we go. This is just a color rendering of the plan that is part of the conditional district. The duplexes are oriented so that they address the street. We have a single access that was coordinated with the TRC because of how busy Carr Avenue is, and then keeping it as far away as possible from the Greenway Avenue intersection with Carr. We have a power line going through here, so I think this was a very efficient use to infill with more residences in there. The trees you see in the sort of bright green are all existing trees. We did have a full tree and topo survey prior to coming in with the site plan. And we did work with the TRC's urban planner with some of their ideas. We had 2 driveways prior to, but I think we can work with fire services, with the TRC, to make this a nice looking community and maintain the streetscape along Greenway Avenue. Again, the preliminary elevation of the site. And overall, we feel that it's consistent for the R5 zoning because infill development where lots are existing does reduce housing development costs and will restore housing options, diversity, and certainly keep the costs lower because of the density increase. Location-efficient housing should be promoted and encouraged for sustainability and adaptability of our community. This is in an area on bus lines. It's walkable with the multi-use trail that is along Randall Parkway and the bike lanes that are along South Carr Avenue. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and we'd appreciate your support.
Mr. Rembar?
Cindy, I noticed Patrick said there was not any trees that rose to the level of protected trees on any of the 4 lots. Is that correct?
As far as protected, I mean, the regulated trees, could you bring Pat's version of it up, his last slide, please? All of the regulated trees, which of course have even come down in the caliper. So what I think you're referring to are the significant and/or specimen trees. There are no specimen trees. The significant trees are now hardwoods over 18 inches and pines over 24. Of the significant trees, they're all being saved, to the best of my knowledge, remember. But keep in mind that these are residential lots. So as part of the conditional district, yes, we're committing to saving trees based upon the conditional site plan that it would be part of the approval. But as individual residential lots, they otherwise would have been exempt from tree preservation whatsoever. Lot 1 that Mr. Anderson was referring to had no regulated trees whatsoever. Lot 2, what's a little bit hard to see here, the depth of my drafting, I guess, are the the trees that will be removed are in shadow in that. And there are still quite a few removal trees, but they're all just regulated, not to be mitigated.
And there is a landscaping plan?
Again, R5 with duplexes is not subject in an exempted division to landscaping requirements. But yes, I mean, certainly the houses are landscaped for foundation plantings. There wouldn't be any interior parking areas. There wouldn't be streetscaping. We are somewhat limited in streetscaping because of the utility, the overhead power line easements.
Okay.
But the trees that are shown to stay would stay.
Well, the only thing you can't do under a power line is build under it. You can do most anything else.
You have to be careful with your tree heights, but yes, understory trees can be planted along the street yard.
Okay.
If that's something that's important to the rezoning, certainly we can commit to street yard landscaping. That would be typical of probably the MD criteria.
Thank you.
Anderson?
Cindy, go to your more colorful.
Okay.
That one down there. You're showing a couple trees on lot 1. I mean, the blue,
Yeah,
the blue
in
and
my
the blue
color-
and the green. Are we going to come through with that?
I can commit to what I'm showing. The bright green ones, they're existing.
Right, but I'm talking
Those
about
other colors and the foundation plantings, yes, we could certainly commit to landscaping that way.
Well, there aren't many. There's a few do-overs I'd like to have, and one of them's across the street, and they're at Aspen, and I'd give a lot to zap back to that moment and make them put in a little more trees. It's really kind of embarrassing, so that we let that one go through the way it did. But that's a major corridor to make that as attractive. I'd love to see you commit to what you've got here.
All right. I mean, we're willing to condition to the trees that are shown here as extra trees, yes.
Okay, are there any other questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. This time, I will open up the public hearing and ask if anybody in the public would like to speak on this item. Please come forward and state their name for the record. Madam Clerk, have you received any additional commentary?
No, sir.
Okay, and any further questions from council? Okay. I'm going to close the public hearing And as for the wishes of council, we have a motion approved by Councilmember Barnett, second by Mayor Pro Tem Haynes. Mr. Barnett, will you please read a consistent statement for the record, sir?
I move to approve the proposed amendment to rezone property located at 271 South Kerr Avenue and 4515 Greenway Avenue from R10 Medium Density Single Dwelling District to R5 CD Medium Density Mixed Residential Conditional District for a 4-lot residential duplex subdivision with a maximum of 8 units, and found it to be consistent with the relevant policies in the comprehensive plan. Based on the application materials and the information provided at the public hearing and in the staff report, and to find approval of the rezoning request is reasonable and in the public interest for the following reasons. The proposed rezoning is compatible with the surrounding area and would provide additional housing options along a major corridor and near commercial services.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry if I could just briefly interrupt. Councilmember Barnett, does that include the desire to add a condition to comply with the trees as shown on the plan that you just saw from
Yes.
Ms. Wolf? Then you would need to add that in as condition number 7 on your listed conditions and make that part of your motion.
Okay, I'd like to make that part of my motion.
As condition number 7.
Condition number 7, yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right. Okay. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The item passes unanimously on first reading. Is there a motion to waive second reading? Motion made by Councilmember Waddell, second by Councilmember Spears. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item passes unanimously on first as well as second reading. That brings us to our next item of business, which is item PH4, which is an ordinance amending the official zoning map of the city to rezone property containing 1.57 acres of land located at 206 and 208 North Kerr Avenue from R10 Medium Density Single Dwelling District and RB Regional Business to R5 CD Medium, light went out here, Medium Density Mixed Residential District, Conditional District to allow a 2-lot residential townhome subdivision with a maximum of 15 units. At this time, I'd like to recognize our city manager, Mr. Cottle. Mr. Cottle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Associate Planner Patrick O'Mahony will overview this item as well.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor, members of council. This site is located on the southeast corner of North Carr Avenue and Birchwood Drive and contains approximately 1.57 acres. It's currently occupied by 2 residential structures. This is a vicinity map showing the area surrounding the request. And these are photos of the subject property. And these are photos of adjacent land uses. As mentioned, the site's currently zoned R10 residential. It's also a regional business, RB. It's bordered by R10 to the north, O&I to the south and west, and RB regional business zoning to the south and east. There are residential uses located to the west and north, with commercial uses located to the south and east. Again, the applicant proposes to rezone this property from R10 residential and RB regional business to R5 conditional district. This is for 2 lots. Each will contain a townhome with a total of 15 units between the 2 lots. The townhome units would be accessed by a shared driveway with a single access to Birchwood Drive. Under the current R10 zoning, there's a development potential of 6 residential units, which would also allow 6 accessory dwelling units as well. These are proposed elevations submitted by the applicant. The site is located within a high-density transition area of opportunity, a mixed-use place, mixed-use center, and a transit-oriented mixed-use center on the Comprehensive Plan's Growth Strategies map. North Carr Avenue is also considered a major corridor and a regional connector. These designations promote moderate increases in density where appropriate. This proposal places additional density along a major corridor. It's near transit services, and it is in close proximity to commercial services as well. Staff believes this proposed zoning amendment is consistent with the recommendations of the Crate-Wilmington Comprehensive Plan, and that the request is reasonable in the public interest. Staff recommends conditional approval with the conditions outlined in the case summary. Planning Commission also unanimously recommended approval of this item as well, 7-0 at their August meeting. Happy to answer any questions. The applicant's here as well.
Okay. Do you have any questions for the staff? Okay. Mr. Anderson.
Real quick, Patrick, and this may be beyond the scope of, or I know it's beyond the scope, but I wonder if you just knew. I like the whole idea of putting parking below, but I wonder, I haven't seen much of this in our community. When I lived in Charlotte, there were a couple deadly situations with that. Does the county have, or they would oversee whether or not you have to have a CO2 and all that kind of stuff, right?
Right. That would all be probably handled through the building permit review process with New Hanover County.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Any questions? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
No, wait a minute.
Oh, yes, sir, I'm sorry, Ms. Spears.
This question may not be for you, this question may be for Tony, but this is the opportune time to ask. And it's not for you, it is for Tony, sorry. But Tony, going back down Birchwood and around towards Princess Place Drive, I just saw this the other day, I was coming that way. The trees, the leaves are like on the street at this point. The branches, it's just hanging over. And that's pretty problematic.
And that's on what street?
It's on Birchwood. So
Okay.
if you were on Birchwood going around and coming back towards Princess Place,
Yes, sir.
the hangover is crazy. And I don't know if that's the property owner's issue or ours, but this just reminded me of it. So sorry,
Yes, sir.
Patrick.
No problem.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
This time, I recognize the applicant.
Thank you. Again, for the record, I'm Cindy Wolf. This is another one of the R5 zoning, but takes advantage of the attached single-family homes, the townhomes that Pat referred to. And in this location, closer to a lot of those multifamily, three-story dwellings up and down North Carr Avenue, we thought that this was an appropriate type of use for this particular site. The three-story park underneath definitely, I think, is an advantage that we're looking into. It covers less impervious surface when it's all over and done with, but it serves the purpose that we desire with our streetscapes to address the buildings to the street, come around the back, and then find a way to park. And in this particular case, as we said, it is the three-story. We have additional parking for guests and overflow. We have turnarounds that we've coordinated on the preliminary review by the TRC. An architect has already worked on those elevations, and yes, any type of building construction would be monitored not only by fire services, but certainly by building inspections. So I'm assuming, Mr. Anderson, you were referring to carbon monoxide or whatever. I'm sure that those details are looked at very closely in these types of scenarios with the garage.
Right, there were a couple real unfortunate, some deaths in Charlotte when I lived there were from, somebody left the car on, stuff like that, and they didn't have the appropriate measures.
Gotcha. So again, we feel that this rezoning before you is consistent and in the public interest for the infill development reasons and certainly for location-efficient housing. This is also an area where it's very walkable to services there at the intersection of North Carr Avenue and Market Street. You've got food, you've got shopping, you've got all kinds of benefits of people that would want to live in this location. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for the applicant? Mr. Spears?
Cindy, on the last agenda item, I typically ask you about the pricing point of these developments. Could you give me the details?
I mean, it would be market rate, but again, I think in certain locations, market rate varies based upon the amount of traffic that would be in front of it, North Carr, just in general. So no, it is not set aside for workforce housing specifically.
Well,
And I can't tell you what the rents would be until they build them.
Yeah, well, I wasn't asking that for like workforce housing, but I think one big concern for me and a concern for residents of our community is pricing people out of their community. So right across the street, well, diagonally, you have a pretty old neighborhood that's been there for quite a while, and, people are probably comfortable with where they are in the tax rate and what's going on in their community. And, you know, when we bring in new projects and new developments, it raises the property tax. There's really no other way to say it. So I was just asking for that sole purpose.
Yeah, that's hard to say appraisal-wise. Certainly, a lot of times people come in and say, hey, these are going to bring our values down. And then we respond with no new construction to current standards and more, you know, better aesthetics, bring your values up. But you're correct, then values do go up and then tax rates go up too. It's a fine line.
It is.
But I think that as attached townhomes that will certainly be, as far as I know, they intend to build them for individual ownership, but they probably would be rentals. So that makes a difference too in the effects of values.
Yeah, well, you would know better than I, but I was riding yesterday in a pretty isolated area and saw just a strip of townhomes, and the sign out front said started in the 3s and 4s, and I was like, wow. And it was literally almost in the middle of nowhere. So, yeah, you can never tell. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Questions, Mr. Waddell?
Ms. Wolf, would this project constitute like, missing middle housing?
I believe it would, just based upon its location.
Okay.
I mean, the
And
attached
generally a
feature.
townhome.
Now, with the garage, with the storage, yeah, but they're big enough because they are 3-story with the parking underneath that they have the ability to have 3 or 4 bedrooms. And I think the number of bedrooms translates into affordability also.
Thank you. Do we have a unit mix on this yet? Do we know what the bedroom counts are going to be?
Right now, they're designed as 3 bedrooms. That's an interesting dynamic because the old 3-bedroom is no longer in play. And so I think you're going to see some developers take a look at increasing that possibility because of the affordability of the rent.
Why is the old 3-bedroom not in play?
I'll defer to staff, but my understanding is it used to be you could not have more than 3 unrelated people living in a home.
Maybe we can do
And
something about that.
that is no longer in the code.
Oh, it's not in the code anymore?
Correct.
Oh, learned something new tonight.
Well, it was here too. That's when I got the text amendment for quad units, but they were, for the old code, they were only permitted in multi-dwelling districts.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Ms. Wolf, the applicant?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. At this time, I'll open the public hearing and ask if there's anyone that would like to come forward and speak in support or in opposition to this item. Is there anyone that would like to come forward? I will now ask the city clerk, seeing no one on the floor. Have you received anything?
No, ma'am, I have not.
Thank you. So are there any other questions from council? If not, I'll close the public hearing and ask for what the wishes are of council. We have a motion by Mr. Waddell and a second by Mr. Barnett. All those in favor signify by saying, oh, you have to read, Mr. Waddell, you have to read thank you. You have to read the statement.
I move to approve the proposed amendment to rezone property located at 206 and 208 North Carr Avenue from R10 Medium Density Single Dwelling District and RB Regional Business District to R5 CD Medium Density Mixed Residential Conditional District for a 2-lot residential subdivision with maximum of 15 townhouse units, and find it to be consistent with the relevant policies in the comprehensive plan based on the application materials and the information provided at the public hearing and the staff report, and to find approval of the rezoning request is reasonable and in the public interest for the following reasons. The proposed rezoning serves as an appropriate transition between existing commercial and residential areas and provides additional density along a major corridor near services.
Thank you. And with that, all in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? And that passes unanimously. Is there a motion to waive second reading?
We have a motion by Mr. Rivenbark, a second by Mr. Barnett. All in favor of that signify by saying aye. Any opposed? That also passes unanimously. The next item of business are our ordinances. 01 is an ordinance making supplemental appropriation in the amount of $40,000 to the Special Purpose Fund for the creation of the Wilmington Police Department Law Enforcement Museum at Police Headquarters, utilizing $40,000 of North Carolina drug tax revenue. And I'll note that this was continued from our August 16th meeting. At this time, I'll recognize our city manager, Mr. Caudle.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. Police Chief Donnie Williams will overview this item for us.
Good evening, Madam Pro Tem, members of council. The police department is requesting approval to use $40,000 in NC unauthorized substance tax funds for our museum project. These unauthorized controlled substance funds directed by North Carolina General Statute and additional state guidance are to be used directly by North Carolina state or local law enforcement agencies. These funds are intended to be used for law enforcement and not general governmental operations or other activities. This project falls in alignment with the police department's community engagement and public education efforts. This project is a long-term community engagement effort we are hoping to use for several decades, and we're hoping it will impact thousands of people over the years. The museum will be located inside police headquarters. A staff of police employees has worked months on the ideas to transform a blank space to increase our community engagement efforts. And I don't want to put her in the spot, but behind me in the back of the room is Lieutenant Stephanie Boucher, and she is our departmental historian who has led that effort. A goal with the museum is to draw more visitors to headquarters for non-service reasons and expand our relationships with the public. Basically, we want people coming in voluntarily to visit us, not coming in involuntarily or because they've been a victim of a crime or they're coming in to fetch a crash report. We want this place to be interactive and serve as an educational space for both employees and the public. And they have put a lot of thought into that. This thought includes visiting other museums and visiting other police facilities. The display gallery will consist of a combination of permanent and rotating artifacts. Many of these artifacts are currently in storage at headquarters, and a few date back to the late 1800s. The rotating artifacts will be changed to match historic recognition milestones, national holidays, and other special events. Say for Azalea Festival, we may have artifacts on display that tie back to the department working at Azalea Festival, or Women's History Month, or Black History Month, or so forth. We also want to display local artwork in the overhead atrium area of our lobby. We have already obtained our first piece of artwork donated by a young member of the community that will be displayed. We are hoping the museum visitors will also stop by our outside law enforcement memorial dedicated to the 10 Wilmington police officers and 3 New Hanover County Sheriff's deputies that have paid the ultimate sacrifice while serving our community. At this time, are there any questions?
Any questions for the chief? Chief, this has been a kind of a controversial issue.
Yes, sir.
And I think that just the community, in respect to the statute that the state voted on many years ago in regard to how this money can be appropriated or used by police department and sheriff's department. Could you go a little bit further into that, please?
Yes, absolutely. Mr. Peters did, I think, a good job explaining how the unauthorized controlled substance tax works. And it's not just illegal drugs, it's also alcohol. And if you are arrested and you're in possession of a certain amount, we're required to do a form that is called the BD4 form. Once we complete the form, we are out of it. It becomes a civil matter between the individual that had the illegal substance and the state. And what they will do is based on the amount of substance that you had, there's taxes that you pretty much have to pay on it. And the taxes can be paid through cash that we may have seized during the arrest, or they will garnish wages, they'll seize assets, but the state takes care of all of that. And just to give you an example of how many of these BD4 forms we've done since I took over as chief, and this was labor intensive for our staff, from January of 20, from my interim period up until about 3 weeks ago, we completed about 440 BD4 forms. And we are required by law to complete these forms. This is not an option. Statute says you have 48 hours to complete the forms if it meets this certain threshold.
So the money, so the drug seizures that the police department does, that taxable income then goes to the state first. They retain 25% of that?
The state keeps 25%, and then they send 75% back to the state or local law enforcement agency, which is going to be a sheriff's office or a municipal police department. Now, when the federal government is involved, the DEA, the ATF, it goes through a whole nother process. It doesn't even touch this process here.
And that money then can only be used for police-oriented matters, issues?
Correct.
Okay. So you could, over the years, could you give the community some examples of things that y'all have used it for?
Yes, absolutely. Chief Evangelist, my predecessor, he was very conscientious about this money also, and since I've taken over, we use some of it to expand our PAL youth program through a partnership with Link to offer CDL licenses and line worker certifications to young men, which I don't think that's finished yet. We've also purchased chainsaws, which we used during Hurricane Isaias. We got out there and we helped our city crews because they were overwhelmed. We wanted to clean the community up. We purchased video production equipment for we can make additional public service announcements and equip our in-house studio. We purchased a rehab trailer, which we haven't received it yet, but it'll be used for our officers when they work the concert at the pavilion. And the final purchase, you may have seen this out at some of the community events, we purchased a big community engagement trailer where we can do snow cones, ice cream, and popcorn for the community, but we could also feed our officers if we had a large critical incident.
Could you just expand a little bit about the police, the PAL thing?
Yes, the Police Activities League is sort of on a hiatus right now with COVID and with staffing shortages, but the city manager actually last week just gave me the blessing to bring on a part-time person to coordinate our PAL program. And we have several youth activities. Our biggest one is that's actually it's been ongoing even with the shortages is our teen night, and we do that on Saturday nights at the ML King Center, and we were also using Maids Park. And Officer Scott, who was in the room, he's one of our lead officers with PAL, and the idea is to give our teenagers something to do on nights and weekends. Once we get our coordinator in place, we will hopefully reestablish our basketball league, which was for 8 to 10-year-olds and 10 to 12-year-olds. At one point, we had Olympic wrestling, we had cheer and dance, and then we also had soccer. I don't know if we're going to be able to bring all of those programs back, but I envision the league basketball coming back, the team program, and the cheerleading and dance.
So the gentleman that was here before us in the public segment had indicated about the amount of young people that they help through their program with the Eagles, I think the Wilmington Eagles.
Yes, sir.
Seems like a very good proposal. I'm familiar with the team. I've seen them out playing, and they have a lot of young people that play in that league. Is that something that the police league could be involved in some way, shape, or form?
Potentially. We would have to look and see how it aligns with everything else we have going on.
Okay, very good. Mr. Waddell and then Mr. Rivenbar.
Thank you, Chief. I've had some questions about this since it was first presented, long before it became kind of got some traction in the press. So I had some questions a couple weeks ago, and my issue, I want to be very clear with the proposal, is not that I believe that something that showcases the rich history of the Wilmington Police Department isn't warranted. that could not be further from the truth. My issue is, I believe when we do move forward with a display gallery in headquarters, that I'd like it to be done during our budget process and actually, looked at through our budget process, because to be quite honest, I think $40,000 probably not going to cut it. I'm about to start doing a little remodel in my house, and 40,000 isn't going to cut that. So I think somehow I'd like to see the money, for this actual money, be budgeted or be injected back in the community somehow. Understanding, of course, the state guidelines and restrictions, and I know there are significant restrictions on how this money to be used, but I'd like to see the actual upfit of a nice display gallery within the Wilmington Police Department headquarters be something that we look at in our budget process for next fiscal year. It just seems like the right way to go forward with what's going to be a wonderful addition to the city of Wilmington.
Bottom line, Chief, to cut right to the chase, if anybody has heartburn over the way this money comes in and goes out, their argument or what have you is with the state, not the Wilmington Police Department, not the city of Wilmington. In order for us to do some of the things that I've heard people say, Mr. Peters, Councilmember Waddell, is to change the policy in Raleigh. I mean, we can't do by statute the things that people would like to see us do. Meredith, John, is that a fair statement?
Councilmember, you hit the nail on the head. The statute itself says that the revenue is for state and local law enforcement agencies. Rarely do I see law actually call out the agency. And in the very little guidance that is out there, this is from the state treasurer, I think they said it very well. Thus, the proceeds must be used for law enforcement purposes and not for the general operations or activities of the city or county in which the law enforcement agency is a part. The state legislature can change this. We cannot.
Okay. And I think that some of the ideas that have come up certainly have merit. I do. But, I mean, our hands are tied.
Yes, sir, I agree. I'm following what the law says.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Mrs. Spears?
Chief, man, this thing has been a pain in the head for me. That's not the word I want to use, but this thing has been a pain for me. I've wrecked my brain for weeks. I've wrecked my brain about this today. Got a few new gray hairs about it. And I agree with Charlie to a certain extent. This is the issue is not with the Wilmington Police Department. The issue is with the state legislator of how the North Carolina drug tax is used. I think Mr. Peters made a great case about the issue with the stamp and how the people who are being marginalized by the North Carolina drug tax. I agree with Luke as well. What could we do with $40,000? Could we put what you want as an artifacts room? Maybe museum was a strong word. I think the word museum got us where we are now, got us in a pickle. But could we budget to make some kind of honorary display room to law enforcement, specifically to WPD, in our budget for next year? I'm certain we could. And I think that the other thing, my ultimate solution is if we do say yes to this $40,000, could we as a council match this $40,000 effort to create a community initiative? The ask of even while Mr. Seabear was there, Neil and I were talking, and who knows what other sports teams will come out of the woodworks, because they may have some needs in their organization. So it's a perplexed thing for me because I don't see the issue with what you want to do at headquarters. The issue is definitely with the legislature, the state, with how this thing works, and it's troubling. You know, you know how difficult this has been, and I know it's difficult for you as well. You're not displaying it, but it's been a pretty tough period of time to mull over this thing, and I don't know. I just want to express that it's really been difficult to try to bring both parties to a solution that everyone walks away looking like a hero.
Ms. Haynes?
Chief, I think we're sort of throwing the baby out with the bathwater here. I think really the bottom line is whatever happens in the state, and I agree with both of them, the money, what comes back to you, you as the chief administrator tries to make a decision to spread that money out and do what's right, and it can only be used for something for the police department.
Correct, and I have been very mindful. I have purchased no enforcement equipment because I know the community could be sensitive with that. I purchased no weapons, no drones, none of that stuff out of this money purposely because I want to be sensitive to the needs of our community. And again, this project is just to get people in the station, just to bring people together, and it's been morphed into something else.
Yeah, I think it has, and I just want to support your decision, and I think it's a good idea. I mean, we can have school kids come through there and really see the police as their friend, as as Mr. Rogers said on TV, look for the helpers, and that the police are the helpers, and that they should develop this long-term relationship with understanding, and I know that's what you're doing through PAL and all of these other community policing programs that you're doing. It seems to me it's somewhat outside of our budgetary process. It's more yours, and we're just sort of confirming what you're doing. During our budget process, we may want to add to something like that or, shift money around or something. But I'm just here to say that I support it. I think it's a good decision. And I'm very familiar with Lieutenant Boucher because she was downtown for many years. And we miss the lieutenant downtown, but I know she did a wonderful job. She's very detail-oriented. So appreciate all your work on this.
Mr. Spears?
And Donnie, I also want to throw you this alley-oop as the same way that I threw it to Mr. Sidbury when he was at the podium. You talked about PAL, but I know you have a lot more initiatives. And that's the other thing that's been troubling for me when we talk about law enforcement and, it was like the whole defund the police thing not so many years ago. And I'll just be honest, where people use a certain community as a tool to take away from law enforcement. And I don't want to be a part of that, but I know that you do have different initiatives, community initiatives. I mean, and you can explain them better than I, but I saw a picture not too long ago. It was my nephew's birthday, and I told you this. It was a cop and my nephew with a robot. They bought him a robot for his birthday, and I'm certain they didn't know it was my nephew, but, so I just want to extend you the same offer that I extended to Mr. Sidbury for his football program, for you to talk about some initiatives like that you have in our community.
Yes, our men and women, they are constantly doing for this community. If you go to our Facebook page, you could see it. Just today, and I was late getting to our staff meeting, we probably recognized 20 officers for different things that they do all of the time. And it's not just officers, it starts at the top of our organization. I have challenged everyone on our command staff to do some form of community engagement. I do mine, I worship with different churches in the city. I have some that get out and walk. I have the Assistant Chief of Police, David Euler, and Captain Rodney Dawson. They go over and spend time with kids at Kids Making It, making woodwork. So our men and women do a lot, but at the same time, for you can feel safe. We haven't forgotten our primary function, and that's law enforcement and law and order, and we're committed to doing that. We're going to remove dangerous individuals from this community, but at the same time, respecting this community. And I think it's different for me, and I like to share this with people. I don't like to say that I'm the chief of police, because I'm not big into titles. I am a Wilmington police officer that happens to be the chief, meaning I came up from the bottom of this organization, so I get it. I understand this city. I know what makes it tick, and not just me. I can say that about the entire command staff. The assistant chief, he is homegrown. He came up from the bottom of this organization. Alex Sotelo, Ben Kennedy, all of our captains. And I know sometimes we look from the outside, but you can get a good product from looking from within. And I think all of us are testament to that with what we have to deal with on a daily basis. Yesterday, our men and women responded to over 400 calls for service in a 24-hour period. And they just do a lot. And as I told them in the staff meeting earlier, I am proud of them. There's a plaque in my office that says, "A chief that is proud of his police," and I'm proud of the women and men of the Wilmington Police Department.
Mr. Waddell?
Once again, I'm a proponent of the Wilmington Police Department Museum. I can't wait to see it when it does happen. Would it not be, and this is me asking a question here, but would it not be an appropriate or legally satisfactory use to perhaps utilize this $40,000 funds in the form of merit bonuses for some police officers who have gone above and beyond in the community to kind of shine a light on them and set an example for outstanding, excellent behavior or however that may look to you. Or alternatively, some sort of a scholarship program for a Wilmington police officer. And, just spitballing some ideas here. I think I brought a couple of those up in the original agenda briefing because I thought they were legitimate ideas, and wanted to see your thoughts and maybe the city attorneys on the potential legal requirements there.
My thoughts would be, I think those are noble ideas, but I think they could cause tension with the community that we're seizing your drug seizure money and then we're spending it on ourselves. I think that would really create a bunch of tension there that you think your heads are hurting now, they would really be potentially hurting. So that would be my only concern with that one.
Mr. Barnett?
Chief, the Bible says this. It's a crazy statement. It says, "Don't let your good be evil spoken of." You know, and the philosophy behind that phrase is basically is that when you do good stuff, sometimes it's a good thing, but then the way people twist it, it makes your good be like it's evil. Okay, and I think that's the dilemma that I've been having a little bit with this project. I got two questions. Number one, first of all, how much money is in that pot, ballpark?
With NC drug tax, it's probably about $140,000 if you include this money here.
Okay, because a lot of times when I see drug bust on TV and stuff like that, and they talk about, $50,000 or, like a lot of money. So I'm thinking maybe it's a lot of money. That was one of the things I was thinking about. I am very well aware of like your PALS program and all those other programs, and I support that. I trust you. I think that you're doing the right thing, and I would support your vision. Okay, I think the challenge that we have, as I think Councilman Spears said and others have said, perhaps the term museum. I like the idea of a display gallery. If I say display gallery, that's a little different than a quote unquote a museum. But I think it's a good idea, and I would support it because I support your vision, and I recognize, as you mentioned just a few moments ago, you came up from the bottom, and you know what our community needs, and you know what may impact that little boy who comes through and sees these displays and says, hey, you know what, I might want to do that. So I'll support it.
Chief, you made a comment earlier in respect to this display of artifacts that the police department currently has. is the engagement with the community. And I know that's something that you have been very strong about, is the community engagement and opening up the police department or parts of the police department where the community can come in, see what you do, explain the processes, show them the artifacts, and make it part of the community effort, outreach effort that you folks have. We're sitting right across from the Jackson Pool, right there in the north side, and it's imperative that we continue to reach out to the community, and I believe that what you're trying to create here is an opportunity for the community to come in and see and to be able to engage young people and the community as a whole. And I've said this often. We have some of the best community assets in our fire departments, our police departments, our gymnasiums, not only for the city of Wilmington, also in New Hanover County, the schools and all the things that we have used over the years when all of us have played in gyms and have gone to different places. I think this is an opportunity for the police department to really be able to engage and bring people into the department and show them and to be able to engage with them. I think it's an opportunity there, and I would hope that you could go back to your command staff and to your staff and to the people there. You got a lot of smart people there to see what better interaction that we can have with the community. I know here in City Hall we have schools come through here all the time just to look at Thalian Hall and look at where their seat of government is and come to the mayor's office and just see the different things that the community has. And I think that the police department plays an important role and a vital role. And I think that it's an opportunity for you to engage with the community, and now you have something that you can show them and you can talk to them. You've got some great people over there, and I've gone through the department when I come there for meetings, and I'm always amazed at some of the artifacts that the little stuff that you've already displayed there, and I'm like, the community should be able to see this all the time, or at least have access. And I know there's some security apparatus that's tied to that, but I'm sure that you folks could accommodate it in some way, shape, or form. Just like I see a lot of the school kids especially go to the fire stations and engage with our fire department. And I think it's just a great opportunity here for you to do that. And you hit it right on the head when you made a comment about it earlier, and I hope you do that.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Yes, sir. Ms. Spears.
I just want to say that no matter how this thing goes, I believe that Councilman Waddell and I spoke earlier, and I wish Senator Michael Lee was here and Representative Dale Butler were here as well, that we would be willing to go to the NC legislature. Luke, if I'm wrong, say I didn't say that, but we would be willing to go to the state legislature and speak on behalf of trying to create a change. But the issue is not you, and I'm also going to state that even if we do pass this thing, I don't know what we can do anymore, but I'm certain there's always more that we can do to further community initiatives, and I just want to say that I will always try to be a part of that. So just saying that for the public. So.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. All right. With the wishes of council, we have a motion to approve by Mayor Pro Tem Haynes, second by Councilman Barnett. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Item passes 5-1. 6-1. Is there a motion to waive second reading? Motion made by Councilman Barnett, second by Councilman Rivenbark. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item passes unanimously on second reading. That brings us to our next item of business, which has three parts to it, and I'll read all three. Item O2A is an ordinance making appropriations of $5,330,062 to the Parks and Recreation Capital Projects Fund for the Encina Sports Complex. Item O2B, which is a resolution authorizing the award of a construction contract to T.A. Loving Company for the Encina Sports Complex in the amount of $12,491,700. And then item O2C is a resolution authorizing a professional services contract change order for construction administration and environmental services to the John R. McAdams Company Incorporated in the amount of $403,667 for the Encina Sports Complex project. At this time, I'd like to recognize our city manager, Mr. Tony Cottle. Mr. Cottle?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Project Manager Matt Hart will overview these three items for you. As Matt makes his way to the podium, I'd like to also remind you that around 3 o'clock this afternoon, Mr. Moten emailed out 3 pages that indicated the project budget. The second page actually has the budget for this project, both the revenues and the expenditures. Dylan Lee has that if this comes up as a part of the discussion this evening.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Temp, members of the council. I'm about to reiterate some things that you just said, but bear with me. Before you tonight is an ordinance making a supplemental appropriation to the Park and Recreation Capital Projects Fund for the Encino Sports Complex in the amount of approximately $5.3 million, as well as 2 accompanying resolutions authorizing the award of the construction contract for the Encino Sports Complex to T.A. Loving of Goldsboro, North Carolina, which is the lowest responsible bidder of the 2 bids received, in the amount of approximately $12.5 million. Additionally, a professional service contract change order in the amount of approximately $400,000 to John R. Adams Company, which is our designer on this project. If the additional appropriation is approved by council tonight, a contract will be awarded, followed by a notice to proceed for construction to enhance the current facility operated by the Hammerheads Cape Fear Youth Soccer Association that will help provide a better overall playing experience to accommodate the diverse planned programming, including but not limited to youth, adult soccer, lacrosse, and ultimate frisbee. I know we had some questions earlier today, and we have a slide to help explain. All right, this is the same information provided August 15th, it's in a little bit different format. Just want to make that clear. So what we have highlighted here is the ordinance items 2 alpha, the ordinance item 2 Charlie, and ordinance item 2B. So starting on the left is our funding for this project. Our original funding was $10,550,000. We had some additional funding from outside agencies, which is from Encino and the Hammerheads, and additional other small percentage funding of $13,000. With the appropriation of ordinance 2 alpha of $5.3 million, our available funding will be $6.9 million. Expenses for this project in our architectural and engineering, currently we have a contract for $1.6 million with McAdams. With the ordinance 2 Charlie, for the additional funds needed for construction administration and environmental services of $400,000. And for construction, we have planned to award the contract to T.A. Loving, ordinance 2 Bravo of $12.5 million. Other construction costs that are associated with this project at $334,000. The Musco lighting, athletic lighting purchase agreement we have that was in the February council meeting that was approved, and construction contingency of $1.2 million equals $16.9 million. As you can see, both of these numbers are the same. I apologize if it wasn't clear this morning. Yeah. Any questions?
Any questions of staff? Okay.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, any further questions from council? All right. What are the wishes of council in respect to the ordinance 02A? We have a motion to approve by Councilmember Barnett, second by Councilmember Anderson. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item passes unanimously on first reading. Is there a motion to waive second reading? Motion made by Councilmember Waddell, second by Councilmember Anderson. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item passes unanimously on first as well as second reading. Now, item 02B, which is the resolution authorizing the award of a construction contract to T.A. Loving Company for the complex at $12,491,700. What is the wishes of council? We have a motion to approve by Mayor Pro Tem Haynes, second by Councilmember Waddell. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item passes unanimously. Now let's go to the item 02C, which is the resolution authorizing a professional services contract change order for the construction administration environmental services to the John R. McAdams Company, Incorporated, in the amount of $403,667 for the Encino Sports Complex. What are the wishes of council in respect to that resolution. We have a motion to approve by Councilmember Barnett, second by Councilmember Spears. Discussion, all in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item passes unanimously. That brings us to our next, yes, sir, I'm sorry, Ms.
What is the expected delivery date on this project? I'm sorry to get you back up here. If you, somebody asked me that today, and I said, let me get it from the expert tonight.
Well, originally, sir, we were expecting a 12-month project duration, but with the complexity of the project, rain delays, that sort of thing that we might be expecting, we're now looking at probably approximately 15 to 18-month duration.
So early 24?
Yes, sir. So we're exactly, I got a date down here of June 2024. If we start October, November of this year.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Next item of business is our resolution. Resolution declaring Wilmington Fire Station Number 6 located at 3939 Carolina Beach Road as surplus property to be donated for the public purpose of providing affordable and/or no-cost housing to members of the Wilmington community. At this time, I'd like to recognize the city manager, Mr. Caudle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Economic Development Director Aubrey Parsley will overview this item for us.
Good evening again. I know council has already heard a good bit about this property and this project, but allow me to just add a few more comments specific to Good Shepherd and the intended use of the property. The demand for the work that Good Shepherd does and permanent supportive housing in this field is well documented in our area, and that demand is growing, especially as of late. And then on the other side of the equation, the supply of developable lots that are well suited for affordable housing projects or permanent supportive housing projects has been shrinking for some time as well, especially those parcels which are owned and controlled by the city. So the demand and or the need and the supply are moving in opposite directions, which makes the feasibility of executing a project like this that's contemplated in the resolution difficult, and that difficulty is growing as that need or demand and supply are growing further and further apart. On the now rarer occasion that there's a viable site, that site has to be suitable for what a nonprofit in our area or outside our area is actually capable of handling in terms of scale, in terms of complexity, of constructability, funding, and staffing. So there's an additional and I'd say pretty significant layer of complexity added there, which is basically finding a nonprofit that has a compatible business model and who's also in a position to add something new to their day-to-day operations and their overall portfolio when they're in an environment where costs are rising and it's pretty difficult to meet the budget demands of today. So matching property with a project steward is no easy task. And Good Shepherd has a terrific and demonstrated track record in our area. Lakeside Reserve is a great example of that. And ask Dylan to please pull up those pictures if he has them handy. There they are. You know, architecturally speaking, Good Shepherd does a pretty great job of developing projects which mesh with the area that they're in, the surrounding area. So comparisons of this project that's contemplated here at 3939 Carolina Beach Road and this Lakeside Reserve project are fair, not in the building type or the acreage of the site or anything like that, but insofar as they know how to do a project that fits the surrounding area that they're in. So in this vein, Good Shepherd and staff are presenting this item to council tonight, actually with 3 deed restrictions attached to the item. The first is a typical clawback provision, which says the city gets the property back should the intended use of affordable housing cease to be used for the property. The second is a restriction that the buildings on the site not exceed 3 stories, again in the vein of being compatible and meshing with the area. And that recommendation also comes from public feedback and Good Shepherd's desire to respond to that public feedback. The third is a provision that requires that the site be secured on 3 sides, the 3 sides off Carolina Beach Road. In practice, this means installing some type of fence or barrier to secure the property to the benefit of the project's residents, if approved by council. happy to take any questions on this item.
Mr. Avamar.
Aubrey, you mentioned the get back clause, if it should ever cease to be used for affordable housing. What level of affordable housing? Is there a benchmark level like 50, 60, 70, 80% AMI, or this type of use that the Good Shepherd will be implementing?
Ask the city attorney's office to please come to my assistance on this one.
We have not actually drawn up the deed restrictions yet, so we haven't determined exactly what that will be. We're going to negotiate that out further with Good Shepherd, but it's going to have to predominate. We can't have a nominal amount of affordable housing and then it be used for something else. Not that Good Shepherd would ever do that, but we have to make sure that the property is always used in an appropriate fashion, so it'll have to predominate.
Thank you. Thank you, Aubrey.
Thank you, Aubrey.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, what are the wishes of council in respect to the resolution? We have a motion to approve by Councilmember Spears, second by Councilmember Anderson. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item passes unanimously. That brings us to our next item of business, which is item R2, which is a resolution authorizing contract amendment number 5 for the 2021 annual needs stormwater infrastructure drainage repairs and rehabilitation project in the amount of $2,422,500 with New Pipe LLC of Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. At this time, I recognize our city manager, Mr. Cottle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our Stormwater Services Manager, Fred Royal, will overview this item for us.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Council. So this item is a contract amendment for New Pipe Construction Company, who we believe been doing a very good job for us over the last year and a little bit. So we've got plenty more work to do, so this amendment would authorize further work that's prioritized by staff for stormwater infrastructure repairs, as well as aligning it with street repairs and street rehab type repairs, so we get the infrastructure built up under the street before we resurface. This particular amendment has a number of prioritized locations, so we're looking forward to working with the contractor to get those underway. I'll be happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions, Mr. Rule? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Rule.
Thank you.
What are the wishes of council? We have a motion approved by Councilmember Barnett, second by Mayor Pro Tem Haynes. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item passes unanimously. That brings us to our next item of business, which is item R3, which is a resolution authorizing the city manager to apply to the North Carolina Office of Recovery and Resilience for gap financing to support the Starway Village Affordable Housing Project. At this time, I'd like to recognize the city manager, Mr. Cottle. Mr. Cottle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Suzanne Rogers, our housing planner, will overview this item for us.
Thank you, Mr. Cottle, Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. You have before you a resolution authorizing the city manager to apply to the North Carolina Office of Recovery and Resiliency, also known as NCORE, for some community development block grant disaster recovery funding. They have put out a request for proposals for specific projects in areas impacted by Hurricanes Matthew and Florence for a specific support and gap financing for projects that have demonstrated local government support and that have received their 4% low-income housing tax credits already. And so we meet those qualifications and would be an eligible applicant to put forward an application for the Starway project, which has a gap in financing because of rising construction cost and rising interest rates. So this would definitely help solve that problem. I'm happy to answer any questions if I can.
Any questions for Suzanne? Okay, Mr. Barnett?
Yeah. When we apply for these, are the chances of us getting it real strong?
Well, it's a competitive process, but the eligible applications are very well defined and very narrow. So there aren't many communities that will have a 4% approved tax credit project in a hurricane impact area that demonstrate local support. I think we've got a real good chance.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Okay. What are the wishes of council? We have a motion to approve by Councilmember Anderson, second by Councilmember Spears. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That item passes unanimously. Now we'll come to items R4A, R4B, R4C, R4D, and R4E, and I'm going to read each one of them because we'll have to take an individual vote. R4A is a resolution revising the home ownership pool underwriting guidelines. R4B is a resolution authorizing additions to the home ownership pool, better known as HOP program. Item R4C is a resolution adopting a revised housing rehabilitation loan program, also known as owner-occupied housing rehabilitation program underwriting guidelines. R4D is a resolution authorizing revisions to the City of Wilmington rental rehabilitation incentive loan guidelines. And then R4E is a resolution adopting the City of Wilmington down payment assistance guidelines. At this time, I'd like to recognize City Manager, Mr. Caudle. Mr. Caudle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Suzanne Rogers will overview these items as well. Since you got a very detailed presentation this morning, I suspect she'll probably be a bit more abbreviated and be ready to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Caudle. Again, Mayor Saffo, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. Indeed, I will be abbreviated. As you learned this morning, the Loan Review Board met, reviewed all of our housing program applications, took into consideration the increase in housing values or the sales price of housing, the increase in construction cost, and materials and labor, and some other changes that would improve our programs that I explained. And so we're bringing, or they are bringing forward a recommendation to make these changes in our various guidelines. And I'm happy to go into any amount of detail that you want, but in the interest of time, we'll leave it there for now.
Okay. Thank you for the detail this morning. Okay, we have, in respect to R4A, what are the wishes of council? We have a motion to approve by Councilmember Anderson, second by Councilmember Spears. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item passes unanimously. Now, in respect to R4B, what are the wishes of council? We have a motion to approve by Councilmember Rivenbark, second by Councilmember Spears. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item passes unanimously. Item R4C, what are the wishes of council? We have a motion to approve by Councilmember Spears, second by Councilmember Anderson. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Item R4D, what are the wishes of council? We have a motion to approve by Councilmember Rivenbark, second by Councilmember Waddell. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item passes unanimously. And then item R4E, what are the wishes of council? We have a motion to approve by Mayor Pro Tem Haynes, second by Councilmember Barnett. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item passes unanimously. This concludes the regular agenda. Are there any items to be brought forward by our city attorney?
Happy Labor Day. No items.
Nothing.
Mr. Caudle.
Nothing, sir.
Madam Clerk. Mr. Waddell. Mr. Barnett.
As always, I mentioned school is started. I want to challenge folks in our city to go to a youth event, like support a kid at a football game, soccer game, cheerleading competition, art show, musical, anything that kids are doing. They do it better when adults cheer them on. So I want to just encourage each of us to be good cheerleaders for our kids and say positive things to parents who are struggling with raising their kids in some real challenging times.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to remind everybody that on September 17th, which is a Saturday, we will be celebrating Constitution Day, and the city is participating in that, and it will be held at Bijou Park. And we all got an email, and it's for the public also, to remind everyone to submit your comments about the Constitution and what resonates the most with you, what's sort of your favorite part, or what means the most to you in the Constitution, a section or a statement. And those comments will be posted at Bijou Park that day during the celebration. So I'll remind you again.
Ms. Ravenmark. Mr. Anderson. Ms. Spears.
Yes, sir. Want to say happy birthday to my sister. Yesterday was her birthday. Happy Labor Day as well. I also want to say that for the past 2 years, my remote business partner, today is her last day working with me. She's off on a new endeavor tomorrow. She's headed to pre-K. If you call me and I sound a little sad, I'm boo-hoo crying, she's in pre-K, I'll be by the phone all day waiting for her to call to say, Dad, come pick me up, or whatever she does. She texts Luke all the time. She texts Luke all the time from my work phone. So I just, happy new beginnings to her in pre-K, and Daddy will be at home waiting for her to come home.
Good daddy. With that, thank you for taking interest in your government. We stand adjourned.